In the early morning of April 26, 1986, Chernobyl, a Ukrainian nuclear power plant, was working, a little more than 2 kilometers away from the city of Pripyat. The intention of this plant was to carry out a test on the reactor number 4 in order to find out if the reactor's capacities will make it self-sufficient in the event of a blackout. At 1:50 a.m., the test is started, reaching the lowest levels allowed. However, at 30 megawatts of power, a phenomenon called xenopoisoning occurred. This at 1:23 a.m. caused an explosion and seconds later another explosion, which exploded the reactor lid and the concrete walls containing it, and thus releasing about 30 tons of nuclear fuel and graphite into the atmosphere. From the reactor came out a line of radioactive particles that could be seen from the Moscow airport. Two died together with the explosion. The controllers could not believe that there was no more core. It was physically impossible. A fire was raging up the lid of the farmer reactor. The firemen would call in the late at night and try to pull out the fire. The firefighters were already beginning to be affected by high levels of radiation. They were vomiting and bleeding, losing mobility, and some were simply dying. The firefighters were the first heroes of this disaster, but everything got worse from there. After one day, the prior evacuation alert was given. An imminent alert, and the heroes, the Liquidators, were called in. There were 600,000 men who risked their lives. Some of them were military men that every 2 minutes spent in Chernobyl would take away 2 years of service in Afghanistan. Others were poor men who wanted food or money, or simply men whose salary would begin to play. But according to the Soviet Union, there had to be the best men for this great work. However, afterwards, only sacrifice were seen. The idea of the Soviet Union was to build a Soviet-style sarcophagus that would enclose the disaster for 100 years, and thus stop a second explosion that would have left all of Europe inhabited. However, to do that, they had to remove the highly radioactive graphite cylinders and radioactive fuel residues from the ceiling. And as there was no useful machinery, they had to be removed with human force and thrown back into what was formerly known as a nuclear reactor. Dressed in helmet, 30-kilogram lead shields that covered vital parts such as the brain, spine, and legs, some of them were vomiting, crying, screaming, and in pain, and wanting to go home, yet they were still there fighting to say the word they still knew. In November 2016, 30 years after the tragedy, a new sarcophagus was inaugurated, referred to as the New Safe Sarcophagus, to be expected to last 100 years of retaining the high levels of radiation. It is estimated that 28 liquidators died from the reaction poisoning, but probably not even a quarter of them survived, and the remaining ones have health deficits and some complications. In total, more than 6,000 people could die from the radiation to which they were exposed, as a result of the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. At the moment, the entrance to Chernobyl is still restricted. Surrounding societies is still surrounded 30-kilometer restriction, and there are police establishments that help to prevent the entrance of intruders. But the most amazing thing is the flora and fauna that lives there. In the months following the accident, the crops wither, the trees dry up, and it was completely forbidden to harvest food internally or to consume any food made there. As time went by, the trees stopped growing, and some plants will not grow again. However, at this time, everything has changed. While the boundary of the exclusion zone has not changed, the landscape has, almost beyond recognition. Where people were driven out, nature took their place. The wilderness combined with abandoned buildings, farms, and villages looks like a post-apocalyptic world where humans pass and die, and nature was reborn. Still, the nostalgia of that place is present. abandoned things in the middle by the impending expulsion. But what people left behind, through farming and gardening, has become a strangely rich habitat for wild animals. There are animals that have become ascended in places where they shouldn't be and are gradually getting used to the place. And even prior, the city near the power plant is already open to the public for very short visiting periods and has become one of the most talked about tourist attractions in Ukraine. In the end, although there are more than 6,000 cases of thyroid cancer and more than 27,000 cases of cancers in the world, all is not lost. Maybe the memory remains and hurts, or there will be an impulse to move forward and continue. Nature has already made his way and lives in those places. So why not us? Let's learn from the mistakes and who knows, maybe to do better. All thanks to Liquidators.